Spenst. Kevin is the author of the poetry collections Ignite, Jabbering with Bing Bong, and Hearts Amok, memoir in verse, all with Anvil Press, and over a dozen chapbooks, including Pray Goodbye, the Alfred Gustav Press, Ward Notes, the Seraph of Nottingham, Surrey Sonnets, Jack Pine Press, and most recently Upend, Frog Hollow Press. Disability series. He occasionally co-hosts Wax Poetic with R.C. Weslowski, Lucia Misch, and Zofia Rose on Co-op Radio. He lives in Vancouver on unceded Coast Salish territory with the love of his life, Shauna Kaendo. And welcome, Kevin. Yeah, I just want to say that one of my memories of this spring, sort of as lockdown was starting to ease, was going out to catch one of Kevin's corner readings. Oh, yeah. Street corner readings in East Vancouver. It was a wonderful thing because your most recent book came out during the lockdown, right? And it didn't stop Kevin. He got out there and was reading poetry to the people on their balconies and on the street corners. And it was a wonderful moment. And it's great to welcome you here, Kevin.
Oh, thank you so much, Leanne, for that introduction. And thank you so much for being a part of this. And thank you, Planet Earth Poetry, Daniel, and everybody else behind this, Zoe. I'm so excited to read tonight. And I'm so happy to kind of return to Victoria, at least in my imagination, but of certainly seeing your faces makes it more than my imagination, and it's lovely to kind of commune with y'all. So I am reading from the unceded and ancestral lands of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations people, for whom I am so grateful, and I'm so grateful for their continued resistance against so much of the violence that is spreading around the world. And I'm so honored and I'm inspired by their resistance. And I did this earlier because I've been sewing some of the books, I've been drawing in some of the books, I've been doing lots of things with Hearts Amok, which in some ways is a collaboration with Shauna Kaendo, my partner. She did some watercolor art, and that's the cover, which I drew on top of. And there are lots of poems for her in here. But first of all, there's one poem for you and Hopkin and everybody. So I wrote a Sento while I was listening to everybody. And that is, I just wrote down words that I heard as people were reading their poems. And so here's a Sento from tonight's open mic. In beachcomber abundance, and dildos of the sea, bioluminescent squirts find the phallic forward route. Vague orgasms of the sea, snow lazily kisses skin of way, way, way back wrapped around the earth. Decoy manual for the sky in me. The long, slow warmth of your hand, penumbral hush. Swing beside me, soliloquist on the far horizon flowers. Spring tasty. So there, it was. One thing I like about all these Zoom readings and stuff is I like taking notes and writing down just the wonderful words and the images that are in such abundance. So I'm going to read from Hearts Amok tonight, and the second poem in the collection is called A Worshipful Deriding of Flimflam, and it's thinking about growing up with evangelical religion, and I take some hobo slang and some chivalric diction and kind of mix them together. And it begins with an epigraph. Mennonite and Amish women boiled dishes and silverware after a hobo finished eating. Some may have even feared spiritual infection. That's from an essay by Julia Spiker Castorf, an American poet and essayist. Midway along our King George journey, I nodded off in a claggy corner of the bus, bum-rushed into a world wondrous, strange, a land of scrap metal mayhem for a throat-clearing escutcheon scraper and a griffin grappling a horned rabbit at Wally's corner. My gaze gathered up on the side. My gaze gathered up the side of the road, seeking hoboglyphs of a single woman. I swooned at the image merely in mind, and my heart leapt out as a wulpedinger. It hopped extra high upon its pheasant wings, bounded down hard on its antlers' shadows, bolted off to I know not where. I sang in a fusion of con and pro while tracking myself into a forest named Before Thou Lovest Thou Must. After heartless hours, I came upon a camp of ex-evangelicals extracting theological thorns from their hides. They spoke of brain pan washing, mindset rust, how they'd swallowed so much of the corpus of Christ, their bellies now bloated in disbelief. Awkwardly beghast, my insides glittered in fool's gold too. Love lustered in screeds, weaned as I was on post-Mennonite ballyhoo, chasing goosebump moments around at Johnson Heights Evangelical where an angel with a gilt-edged sword severed my sight. I spak of how dimpled hallelujahs danced around my head and I would give chase. My heart hopped, sniffed at renditions of sexy righteousness. Then, under hard scrabbled guilt, I'd faceplant. After a gloss of faith, I forevermore shilly-shallied twixt hosannas and holy shits, like a gambling lamb along Hunger Lane. After a fortnight, I bid this company of unborn-again tramps adieu, walked my old love-lorn suburbopia past the smack glimmer of Guildford Castle towards the skateboards of Clover Vale. That funny heart highballed past and I ran. It dove into a drain at the basement of my childhood. Abandon all mope, ye who enter, croon the darkness. Loosed in translation, the uprooted pipes of yore shall crumple done in your fist to flower through your fingers. This will be your torch to her truth, and forbearance shall make your cardinal points to one the other. So this is a memoir of verse, and it's thinking about love and all the different influences that go into shaping it. The medieval world has really shaped our modern conception of love in so many ways. Hearts, of course, Cupid, and that's a major thread that runs through this. And this poem is being an adolescent in Surrey, and there's a Surrey out there, I think. So hi, this goes out to Surrey, and this is called, and this is for a friend who now lives on Vancouver Island. This is for Jay, and this is called To Risk Throwing the Guts. And it begins with an epigraph from Henry Howard, the Earl of Surrey, who introduced the sonnet or adapted the Italian sonnet into English in the 1500s. Such wayward ways hath love that most part in discord our wills do stand, whereby our hearts but seldom do accord. In the adolescent bog of slop-footed failures, we lugged chainmail to Guildford Castle. We plinked it apart to joust the arcade for scintillating promises of prized maidens. We hid our home life behind our bangs. I pined for one who came from Cali, whose eyes orbited another realm, even off Benadryl or speed, her demeanor delighted. In the symmetry of row upon row, she danced during homeroom announcements, laughed as if out of a Breakfast Club blooper. We kissed once, her tenderness trellised to another. I stewed, then our eyes closed to a little square, woke within a pellucid porousness. Our minds jilted us high and low, schlepped scuds of diamonds, wide open all night. The second section is entitled Ire's Intractabilities. And Ire, there's Ireland, and this is meeting my ex-wife in Vancouver at the Blinding Light Cinema. And the poem is called The Blinding Light Cinema. And it begins with an epigraph from an Irish poet, A.E., who is renowned for, well, he was quite a mystic and, or saw himself as a mystic. James Joyce made fun of him quite a bit. Here's a line from A.E. Seek on earth what you have found in heaven. What gossamer gels held our windfall at first sight? After an exterior shot of the cold, my fogged up glasses illumined your layers of knittery. You, a new volunteer at the concession stand. Posters spinning stars for upcoming Super 8 slacker soliloquies, a lackadaisical kappa in love, a happy hobo cartoon. Under a black toque and secondhand flowerings, your lapis lazuli eyes washed me anew. My brains reeled your body, inlets of tattoos, anecdotal trails. My ear snagged on the lilt grailed in your voice. An old-timey popcorn maker nattered next to you. You'd tumbled into Vancouver to drop out of art school. That evening, an audience of 11 or so saw decomposed footage from a crab trap left in the Hudson River. Abstract expressionism scratched into celluloid emulsified my sideways heart, drawn away to the crush of your projections. Smitten, I give you a packet of sugar with my number on it. Your one thought through it all, I'm not going to marry this man. And that's what she told me was the very first thought that she had when she saw me. And she was wrong for a while, and then she wasn't, because she's my ex. But here's one other poem for her. And this is a poem for her, and it includes a friend who I was talking to for last night, and she didn't know, and I hadn't told her that she appears in a poem of mine. And so this is for, well, Heather, maybe you're out there listening. This is across, not too far from where you live now. This is called the Waverly Pub. It begins with an epigraph from Nirvana. A mulatto, an albino, a mosquito, my libido. My star-glossed eyes blotched your figure everywhere. Our mouths slipped origins. Your first know-nothing kiss, a boy in grade 6 in your other country, as real to me as Sir Lancelot in English 12. Look, I wanted to learn sweetly about every bloke. Your first Canadian, a Billy the Kid wannabe, arrested by the town clowns after a gun-heightened heist. A fling or two later, and you were post-coitaling intimations in my arms. I wanted to outdo these pudnuts, pile euphoria upon old, heart-heightened trysts. At your concert in Cumberland, you sang the room captive. I yowled to a friend, I want to murder everyone and have her voice to myself. My friend repeated my cartoon longings in clattered laughter, as if a branch had burst from your mouth with a bird at the end, and I was the meowling back alley cat lapping at the moon. And here's a poem that I haven't read before because it's not in this book, but it is in, it was in the first kind of version of it as it appeared on my laptop. And so this poem I wrote while I was on the bus going into Victoria, and I was reading Ellie Gardner's Serpentine Loop. And so, and it kind of fit at the time, I thought, but here it is. And my girlfriend who helped edit this, she's like, did I take that poem out? And I'm like, maybe. And then, but so maybe we'll have a vote if you think, yes, it does belong in the book. And I'm joking. Catholic, Protestant, anything else to declare? And a line from Ellie Gardner, one big in-law suite, crowded by natural beauty and lonely. On the double-decker city bus, we bomb along the Patricia Bay Highway, past adumbrations of hills, dingles, farms, and lolling mountains. I'm reading Serpentine Loop. Ellie's technique meticulous, her poetry clocks in armed thoughts each second until a commotion of moments crescendo and weapons are decommissioned. Repurposed parts measure surfaces holding back violence, a trauma had to come. In the pause between pages, do you look up wearing a patchworked growth of the author's gaze? Poetry is a metaphysics of masks. The bus turns, we pass my ex-wife's house. Of all the masks, which do we wear to bear the thought of being on our own? And here's another post-divorce poem. It's called The Opposite of Face Blindness. And it begins with an epigraph from Paul Hunter, a poet who also wrote this novel where clowns are, well, it's a world of clowns. Aging for clowns was more of a ripening that just went on and on. Clowns were born weepy with blubber lips anyhow, and pratfalls demanded lifelong practice. At 40, a midlife crisis smacks me across the kisser as if I awoke with Groucho glasses crazy glued to my face. I triple blink, but kin and kith have vamoosed, leaving their likenesses on strangers, doppelgangers with different hair walking a ganglier gait. I squint unreturned smiles in the cluttering rain. She's lost in a baffled garb of brawlies, ears wrung in gibberish. My middle-aged insides discombobulate between appearances and the glare of the next highbrow bub. How dare I presume to know anyone? No one told me what the crisis would be. I consider the triple take of loss, a wife, her family, and friends. I pray to parse an escape route. In the dandelion den, without a florid of faith, I wait through the damp blanketing breath. Accept it. Halfway through, we're all bound up, tangled in yards of pasts and futures, sitting on our keisters. And I guess here's another poem that I've never read, and I will read it tonight, given the theme that emerged from the open mic. And it's called, oh gosh, where is it now? How do I lust after thee? Let me count the waves of longing that undulate the length of my limbs. I lust after thee to a debris of damnations, to a distraction of delight, a wreckage of debauchery. I lust enthralled, yet hoping to be free, a suitor unsuited to this foreign ocean of casual depths. I bite my tongue when the forbidden word comes into my throat. I like thee a lot. I'm fond of your blue starfish eyes, your body that angles in conversation as if flung back by ratiocination's dynamics. I lust after thee with a lust I seem to have lost. I lust after thee with my breath, smiles, beers. If I were to drown, I'd lust after thee as a soggy zombie. So this ends, Hearts Amok ends, the last chapter is upend. And here is the last first date. It begins with an epigraph from Lydia Davis. It's extraordinary, says one woman. It is extraordinary, says the other. You rode in with the horizon falling behind like a dumpled parachute. Your smile landed. Our tires treaded close to each other. Two giant birds bequested our conversation with overarching attention. The sun glamored in. We clicked our helmet straps into place, cycled to whiskey. From there, we dabbled deep in chemistry. We'd crossed paths over the past 20 years. I bought earrings from you at Dream. You saw a short I acted in at the Blinding Light. Your heart had moved you to Mexico, Madrid, and then LA, but these weren't failures. We learn each time, you said, through alchemizing exactitude. We sat on art made of metal. You farted. Le cul de foudre! I feel like a gesture should go with that French. Le cul de foudre, which is thunder. A cul. Cul is a strike, and a strike of sound. De foudre. And yeah, so she farted on our first date. And in this poem, I celebrate that, commemorate that. We don't really do anniversaries or anything, so it's good that it's there in the poem. So it's kind of an eternal kind of thing. Here is another poem that's kind of located in the same place around False Creek. And Earl Burney has a long poem kind of where he walks around False Creek. And there's an epigraph from him here. Down through the common explosion of time, through the chaos of suns, on the road of sighs around False Creek. You are as myriad-minded as this inlet. Even on this cloudy day, it moves in a million bites, curvatures, wimples, and when the gray lid over this city slips, light spills unheard of lines. Each sun-dunked raindrop stipples a ripple of you. Bright stories told behind your glasses' liquidities. You laugh in uproarious riots of youth, and your argentium hair flashes the ages. Your proof cubism is drawn from reality. You stand in perfect angles, unassisted by any ruler. You're unlike likenesses. We sigh in accord, play at tug-of-war gazes, fall into each other's iridescent distinctions. And I think I have time for 2 more poems. And I'm going to try to improvise a song for one. And I guess I'll do it with this one because it's short. And I get migraines once in a while. And Karen Schlenka, a poet friend, has written about her migraines. So this is called Third Testament, and it begins with an epigraph from Karen Schlenka, "How edges of pain waver." And also a line from Gertrude Stein. "There was a groping for using everything, and there was a groping for a continuous present, and there was an inevitable beginning of beginning again and again and again. To give you my all would be egregious." To give you my all would be egregious. "An overwhelming superfluity. Yet I will pass on this miracle migraine, beginning as remote as an aurora borealis. In the darkness, it brightens jaggedly without a beep of agony or grief. It flows open with the tepid tub water into horizons of wayward rainbows again. In this landscape, I hold the thought of you, vow to do my share that will bend the day to day. Swear I'll live in our moments making, in all our collaborations beginnings again and again." Okay, thanks for your patience. We're improvising. We're making stuff up. In our language, we make poems up. They're kind of yeah. And I'm gonna try at one last experiment, if you'll indulge me. I've always been curious of laughter and well, that laughing and crying that seems to sound the same. That is that kind of point where somebody's like, and they're laughing or crying, and it sounds exactly the same. And I want to do that with this poem. I want to find that voice that could be like, is he crying? Is he laughing? What is it? And it's called The Architecture of a Rock. Don Demansky, with a tobacco-stained anthill for a heart. Loneliness is a boulder at the bottom of ye old soul, graffitied upon by know-nothing punk fears, garlanded by cross-eyed tourists from the land of self-help, shunned by bum moments, a backdrop for a punch and show. Blow out the candle, casting these shadows, and let the darkness hold the glum Goliath's Forgive yourself within its blood puzzle heads. Try on its strength for size. Wrap up in resilience. The sun will rise inside you in a ringed chorus of singeing, dying angels. Old depots of myth will be torn down following this transmission. Broken stones will pave a way wider than the old horizons. Okay, there you go. Thank you so much.
Oh, Kevin, we like thee a lot. We do.